Thank you so much. So I'm so happy to be here today in beautiful Taipei, or sorry, Taichung. I don't know where I am. Thank you so much to Emily and all the other organizers. There were times where so initially I thought I was supposed to fly into Taichung, and I'm about to book tickets to fly in there, and then the tickets seem expensive and like it's a long way. And then around 11 o'clock at night, I Facebook Emily, and she's like, no, fly into Taipei and take the train. And so she's really done a ton of work, and I appreciate that. Okay, so I know everyone is hungry. You guys are going to be waiting for me to finish the talk to eat. I sympathize with that. I'm hungry too, so I'm going to blow through this talk. So the title of my talk is We've Never Been Human, Trans, Post-Humanism, Philosophical Anthropology, and Biotechnology with reference to Daoism and Deleuze. My name is Rockwell Clancy. I'm a lecturer at the University of Michigan-Shanghai Jiao Tong University. If you're interested in learning more about my research or teaching, you can check out my website. Sorry, which one of them points? Is one of them, oh yeah, okay. Actually, it's relatively obvious that this is a web page and this is where you should go. Okay. Okay, so my talk is related to previous research regarding Deleuze psychoanalysis and Anglo-American literature, and more recent research regarding engineering ethics, philosophy of technology, and moral psychology. So it's kind of all over the place. There's a lot of information in this talk. I'm going to blow through as quickly as possible, and then we can come back to any specific parts you guys are interested in asking questions more about during lunch. Okay, my main thesis is that fears regarding the ways human beings are now capable of using technologies to change who they are and how they live are largely misguided. So these fears regarding the way that human beings are going to change their human nature using biotechnologies, these fears are misguided, largely misguided. Why is this? These fears themselves result from misconceptions regarding what it's ever meant to be human. So the conception of humanity that's under threat as a result of biotechnology, I would argue, is simply wrong. It's based on misguided metaphysical suppositions. Okay, this thesis is largely similar to that of Andy Clark, who's a philosophy of mind, cognitive science guy at the University of Edinburgh now. I only discovered this book, actually, after I started writing this paper. That's called Natural Born Cyborgs. It's a wonderful book. Okay, my talk today will be divided into 3 parts. So to support this central thesis or central claim, there will be 3 parts of my talk. First, human nature and technology, history, and current trends, where I'll talk about the background of these fears. The second part of my talk is titled Philosophical Anthropology, What We Thought and Think. Here I'll discuss the nature of philosophical anthropology, so what I mean by philosophical anthropology within the history of Western philosophical philosophy, what people have thought, as well as evidence from the social sciences that this understanding of human nature is largely misguided. Finally, in the third part of my talk, becoming who and what we are with technology, Daoism and Deleuze. I talk about proper conceptualizations of the relationships between human beings and technology in the thought of both Daoism and Deleuze. So here I claim Daoist thinkers and then also Deleuze, there's a conception of human nature central to their thought. And technology itself plays a central role in this conception of human nature. Okay, part 1, human nature and technology, history and current trends. Okay, fears regarding the way that technology will influence human life for the worse are by no means new. So, in the history of ancient Western philosophy, Socrates and Plato, in the Phaedrus, they raised this concern regarding the nature of writing. So if you write things down, you won't be able to remember things as well. And insofar as memory is a central feature of what it means to be a human being, writing will change human nature. And for this reason, we shouldn't write things down. We should only have a dialogue, right? Now, this is the fear regarding technology and how technology will corrupt us. It's by no means unique to Western thought either. So, in ancient Eastern thought or ancient Chinese thought, Lao Tzu is generally considered a quasi-Luddite, which means he hates technology or he's a kind of primitivist. Generally, the conception of Lao Tzu, at least as his positions are put forward in the Tao Te Ching, is that he thinks that technologies will lead us away from the way or the Tao. They'll corrupt our natures. We shouldn't use technologies. Okay, more recently, again, it's it's related to what Brett was talking about this morning. Heidegger, of course, talks about the corrosive effects of technology on human life, where we go from viewing individual beings and then being in general as a kind of standing reserve to be used for human beings. Okay, more recently though, there's been a kind of fresh urgency to these fields, in large part because of advances in biotechnology. These include technologies related to the maintenance and or enhancement of life, for example, genetic engineering, life extension, cognitive enhancement, prosthetic limbs, etc. Also, the increasingly obvious effects of human actions on the environment with regard to global warming and the Anthropocene and all this kind of stuff. Okay. Trans or post-humanism is generally characterized or understood as the state or stage between or beyond that of the merely human. This entire line of thought as a discipline is motivated and engages with concerns of an intensely practical nature. So versus a lot of stuff that happens in philosophy departments or comparative literature departments, trans and post-humanism is, my general impression, much more engaged. Okay, an example, how many people have seen the Divergence series? Divergence? There are 3 of these books, they're like young adult literature. So I'm like the only dork who reads young adult literature and watches these movies. But it's like the Hunger Games, it's a genre like this. And so if you haven't, you know what I'm talking about? What's it called in Chinese? Fen Shizi, Imen Jidama? Okay, so the central thesis or the central theme of this book is the fact that human beings have used genetic engineering to alter human genes with horrific results, right? And so this is at the center of popular consciousness. Okay, also, and so there are going to be a couple slides after this, and I'm not going to read through all these. These are just examples of these things. So, genetically modified organisms, GMOs, CRISPR gene editing technique. So this is where you use bacteria to change DNA and stem cells, especially in China. In the last 2 years, mainland Chinese scientists have tried twice to alter human stem cells doing this, and it's led to these fears. So again, we can come back to this. This talk has been given to engineers, and so I won't go through all this, but if you guys are interested in coming back to this, I can talk about it. So it ignited lots of concerns and talks between scientists worldwide, the fact that the Chinese were doing this, and there more or less been a moratorium on messing with human stem cells before they differentiated into different types of cells. I can come back to this also. So this the famous scientist in South Korea who was doing stuff with stem cells and then lying about it. More recently, so I discovered this. This was for a different talk, but I discovered this. So this guy lost his job as a professor of chemistry in South Korea. So he turns up again associated with this company in China called Biotechnology, where they'll clone your pet for you. So they'll clone your pet for you. So this guy lost his job as a university professor in South Korea, and he's no longer has access to university funds. He was essentially forcing his female research assistants to donate their eggs for his work. So he lost his position. He turns up 10 years later as the founder of this company, Biotechnology in China, which I think is based in Wuxi. In any event, we can talk about that. Okay, other examples of this, so within bioethics, Leon Cass has extolled the merits of disgust and moral reasoning. This is a response to cloning, so the cloning of Dolly the sheep. Again, this is intensely practical because Leon Cass was, I think, the chair of the President's Council on Bioethics under Bush. So he's at University of Chicago now, but it was as a result of things that he said that for a long time scientists in the United States were not allowed to get federal funding to do work on stem cells. So intensely practical answers to these questions. Within the political sphere, thinkers such as Francis Fukuyama Michael Sandel, both liberal thinkers who've written books, warning us against using biotechnology to change who we are, and other disasters, Paul Virilio, of course, has written about the importance of speed in considering technology in contemporary human life. And then, I mean, if you guys are on as many listservs as I am, like every week I get a call for papers, either for a journal or a conference about the Anthropology, which is tons of concern. So all of these, I think, fall under this purview or this category of concerns regarding the way technology is going to change human nature. Okay. The more pessimistic strands of these thoughts say that we should use this technology, so they bewail technological development, saying it's going to make us worse, People are more optimistic in it. They're interested in the ways that this can change us for the better and what the philosophical implications of this would be. Okay, my position and my thesis here is that both positions are more or less misguided. So whether you're a pessimist or you're an optimist, these positions are both misguided. Why? It's less that technological developments are fundamentally changing who and what we are, and more that through technological developments, so as a result of the use of new technologies, we're finally discovering what we've been as a species all along. So that's my central claim here. Okay, that's the first part of my talk where I outlined the background of these fears and concerns. The second part of my talk is entitled Philosophical Anthropology, What We Thought and What We Think. Okay, this part of my talk is going to be divided into two major parts. First, I'll describe the major tenets and conceptions of human nature within the mainstream of the Western philosophical tradition. This is important because purportedly it's technology that changes an understanding of human life in these terms, and so we should understand exactly what these commitments are. And then second, I'll talk about findings from the social sciences, specifically interdisciplinary work between philosophy, anthropology, and sociology that calls into question the metaphysical commitments on which these claims are based. Okay, so I would think that any philosophical anthropology is commonly understood as an account of human nature. Any philosophical anthropology can answer four basic questions. So historically this has been the case, and I think even today you would have to grapple with these four questions. So what's the relationship between mind and body, even if the relationship is that there is no mind and body, you would still, given the history that's come before, explain the relationship between these two. What's the nature of individuality? What's the nature of community? And then what kinds of relations exist between individuals and community? So I would think that these are four parameters in terms of which to think about what it would mean to be human. Okay, I think it's important to recoup this notion. So accounts of human nature are increasingly taking, or discussions regarding what it means to be human are increasingly taking place within bioethics. But in general, human nature, which is certainly a central question within the Eastern philosophical tradition and to a large extent the Western philosophical tradition, it's just not thought as much anymore, although this is starting to change. Okay, part of the reason we should recoup this notion of philosophical anthropology is because the nature of these questions and their answers are interrelated, and we want a kind of holistic understanding or perspective, in addition to the fact that these questions and the answers can have political consequences. More recently, Balibar has been writing, or has written about this, or Eduardo Maschere, he's an analytic philosophy of science guy at the University of Pittsburgh. He, from a totally different tradition, has written papers on human nature that's important. Jason Reed, that some of you guys might be familiar with, he does work on this. And then I've written a couple of papers more recently dealing with physics and that. Okay, so I'm going to run through this now super quick because I know we're short on time. Okay. In the mainstream of the Western philosophical tradition, the relationship between mind and body has been conceived dualistic, meaning the mind is one thing, the body is something else, and they somehow interact, but they're fundamentally two different things. In addition to that, the mind and its associated faculties are superior to or more real than in controlling of the body and its faculties. Okay, individuality is conceived in substantial terms. A substance is something that exists in and through itself alone. So individuals have been conceived as substance, and again, I think I don't think this is a controversial claim I'm making. This seems to be the case from Plato through Descartes up to contemporary positions within philosophy of mind. Okay, then community and relations between them. Community has been conceived as a collection of individuals conceived of substances, and then relations between individuals and community have been conceived in terms of goal-directed behavior. So it's goal-directed behavior that brings individuals together within communities. And now, again, for a lot of us, we might say like, oh, well, that's dumb. How can anyone think that at this point? But in fact, like, again, when you look at economics, rational act, or choice theory, that's exactly the conception that they use to think about the relationship between individuals and community and how they react. And this has consequences in terms of policies that guide our lives. Okay. So should we think of the mind and body in terms of dualism? The answer to this question would be certainly no. Developmental, social, and neuropsychology give an increasingly prominent role to not only the brain, but also the body and understandings of the way that human problems. Without bodies, algorithmic processes are totally different from anything like human intelligence. So computer programs like AlphaGo or Deep Blue, it doesn't seem capable of following algorithms, but they're not intelligent the way that human beings. And lots of people have argued that this is a result of the fact that they don't have bodies that are forced to interact with their environments. To really get artificial intelligence, we would need something like, we need advances in robotics also, so that an artificial mind can be embodied in the world. Okay, this is represented by the work of Peter Travis and John Searle. So conscious thought is conditioned by a variety of unconscious environmental factors. Okay, so are individual substances? I would say certainly not. Again, boundaries of individuality extend far beyond other minds or bodies of which individuals are endowed if these things are composed. This is related to an extended mind thesis, again, by Clark and also Peter Chalmers. Not only the ways we think about ourselves, but also our capacities for actions are conditioned and determined by not only other individuals, but then also environmental factors. So nothing exists in and through itself alone, much less anything having to do with human life. Okay, and then community should not be understood as a collection of substances. Relationships between the two should not be conceived in terms of goal-directed activities. Okay, so that was the second part of my talk, what philosophical anthropology means, what the mainstream of the Western philosophical tradition has thought it means to be a human being, and then reasons for doubting that this picture of what it means to be human are correct. In the third final part of my talk, I'll turn to the thought of Deleuze and Daoism. His conceptions of, so to examine accounts of philosophical anthropology where technology has already been understood is playing a fundamental role. And so for most of you familiar with Deleuze, this might not sound like a bizarre claim. For anyone who's familiar with Daoism, it probably certainly would. So I want to justify this a little bit. Okay. So again, this part of my talk is divided into two parts. First, I'll quickly go through the way that these two are opposed to each other, and then I'll talk about how these differences are evident in their conceptions or their understandings of nature and world. Okay, so for Deleuze probably first, at the basis of Deleuze's metaphysics, I would think is the work of Spinoza. So Spinoza's metaphysics and his conception of what the world is like is at the basis of Deleuze's metaphysics. Okay. This consists in mind-body parallelism, so the mind and body are not two distinct things. Mind and body are both different. Mind and body are both different attributes of modes that exist as expressions of substance, yes? And then individuals and community are modes, unique sets of relations, rather than anything like substances. Also, of course, in Daoism, there's the Taichung, symbol that shows that man and woman, black and white, good and bad, the two are never separated from each other. Hey, dude. Okay, naturalism. So here's the other thing. Deleuze and then also Daoism, they're generally described as vitalists or naturalists or something like this. I think that that's totally wrong. Okay, why do I think it's totally wrong? Because I think a central thesis of naturalism or vitalism would be this idea that the natural serves as a kind of good or model for emulation. Here, nature is understood as a well-ordered whole of interconnected parts in a quasi-realistic human Hegelian fashion, where the cosmos is itself a kind of vast organism guided by intelligence, understood in contradistinction to that which is artificial. Here, and I'll go on to show how this is the case in the work of both Daoism and Deleuze, there's nothing natural about nature as such. So nature itself is a process of construction, undergoing constant change, determined as much by that which is organic is inorganic, giving a central position to technology and understanding. Okay, the opening lines of the Tao Te Ching go something like the Tao that can be spoken of is different from the Tao that is, and da 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 da. Generally, commenters say that, well, this is symptomatic of the fact that Lao Tzu is himself, even at the very beginning of the Tao Te Ching, hostile to language. So it's language that separates us from the ultimate reality, which is the Tao. And so, yeah, so most commentators on the Tao Te Ching would say that Lao Tzu thinks we should go back to a kind of forced speech, which to me just seems crazy. Like, it's just, I mean, certainly that can't be the case because we're not going to do that. Okay, that being said, so a better way of understanding that, I think, is that speaking is itself a part of what is the Tao, and in speaking we change that about that which is being spoken about, and both of them are part of nature. So nature is not this thing that exists over and above the world or underneath the world to guide it, but we're part of that anyway already. Okay, in Deleuze, and so there are a bunch of these I'm going to just go through really quickly. So in the opening lines, in Spinoza Practical Philosophy, Deleuze is insistent on the fact that Spinoza does not begin the ethics with nature, but begins it with substance. And so Deleuze says we should be absolutely clear about the fact that Spinoza is not a pantheist, because there's more to what exists than nature alone. So there's substance. Because again, substance, according to Spinoza, would express itself in an infinite number of ways. And nature, what we would identify with nature, is just one. Okay, this distinction between primary and secondary nature, which appears in Essays Critical and Clinical, and Essay on Melville, with regard to Bartleby and Moby Dick, and then also in Coldness and Cruelty. Well, it's this idea that there's nothing inherently good about nature. Nature is at times incredibly cruel. Marquis de Sade, in Philosophy of the Veteran, he says, so he's essentially criticizing the moralists of his day who say we should be moral, and that means to be natural, and it's unnatural to have sex with your sister or have sex with more than one person at a time, or da 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 da. And Marquis de Sade says, let's look at what nature does and behave like nature. And he says, take a hurricane or a volcano. Let's burn hundreds of people to death and destroy their houses. He says, if that's what natural is, that's how we should act. Okay. The idea of an open or fragmented whole, let me just go through this quickly and then we can come back to it. This also appears in, again, Essays Critical and Clinical, in Whitman. Deleuze is specifically concerned with specimen days. For war and nature indeed share a common cause. Nature moves forward in procession. Okay, with regard, in Anti-Oedipus, regarding the work of Samuel Butler and Erewhon, Deleuze and Guattari say that human beings constitute the reproductive organs of vapor engines, just as vapor engines constitute the reproductive organs of human beings. And so there's nothing natural about nature as such. It's this process of construction that involves organic stuff as much as inorganic stuff. He returns to this in negotiations and then dialogues. Okay, so nature is not well-ordered, harmonious, and organic, an organism that is constantly changing, chaotic, involving, da, 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 da. Similar also to what you find in the work, the more recent work of Bruno and Twin, okay. On to work finally, and then I'll end my talk. Or should I just end it now?
You're at the limit, but...
Okay, So just really quickly, so finally, the nature of work. So you also see this difference in the nature of work in Daoism, and then also Deleuze. Okay, Butcher Ding is the story in the Zhuangzi. So how many people are familiar with the story of Butcher Ding? So Butcher Ding is the butcher who sharpens his knife, I think, every. Say it out loud, so everyone. 你们知道吗? Maybe other. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so Butcher Ding is this butcher who hasn't had to sharpen his knife for 15 years. So he hasn't had to sharpen his knife for 15 years. A great butcher has to sharpen his knife once a year, a bad butcher once a month. Why doesn't Butcher Ding ever have to sharpen his blade? It's because he cuts exactly at the joints. So he cuts exactly at the joints. This is supposed to be an example of wu wei, or effortless action, so acting in a way without thinking. Okay, what strikes so why I'm interested in this story is because Butcher Ding is this example of wu wei, or becoming most truly who and what we are. He interacts with not only himself, so he becomes most fully who he is, but so he's doing this carving for a ritual, so he becomes related to his culture and his community and his surroundings. He only gets there by using this knife. So it's only on the basis of using a technology that he can become most fully who he is in relation to his community and in relation to his tradition. Okay. So this is inspired by the work of Edward Slingerland. Okay, in contradistinction to a foundational myth within Christianity. So, according to the story of Adam and Eve, the origin of work is the fact that we've been thrown out of the Garden of Eden. So man is condemned to toil in the earth for his heat. Women suffer pain in childbirth because we ate the apple of forbidden fruit and were thrown out of the garden. Okay. Right? And so, as a result of this, then every time we use technology, it's a reminder of our fallenness. So we have to use technology because we're not in the Garden of Eden anymore, doing things without any effort whatsoever. And so I think that this is evidence of a different perspective on technology. Obviously, there are different understandings of that. Okay. In Deleuze and Guattari, their notion of praxis. So I think every time they talk about desire of the unconscious, it could be replaced with the word praxis in Marx and Engels' sense, at least as it appears in the German ideology. And then here are a bunch of quotes that support this claim, because I realize that might be a more contentious claim regarding argument of Deleuze. Okay, so actually I'm just going to stop there.